How many of the knives sitting in your drawer right now did you make worse the last time you tried to clean one up? Not ruined, just worse. Thinner, brighter, younger looking, and worth about a third of what they were the week before you got the sandpaper out. My name is Walt Rennick. I am 71 years old. I spent 34 years as a tool and die maker in a shop outside Dayton, Ohio, and I have had somewhere around 9,000 blades across my bench since my grandfather first handed me a rag and a tin of oil when I was 9. I do not sell knives. People send me theirs, and I send them back. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to give you 8 things, each one with a price attached, that lets you tell the difference between the black on an old blade and the red on an old blade. Keep the black, kill the red, and never touch the steel underneath. Here is the part that will sound backwards. The black layer on that old blade is not rust. It is the thing that has been preventing rust for the last 60 years. Every hour you spend scrubbing it off, you are removing the knife's own armor and handing the bare iron back to the weather. There are hundreds of millions of views sitting on silent restoration videos where a black, crusted blade goes into a wire wheel and comes out looking like a bathroom fixture. Nobody narrates them, and that is not an accident, because the moment you have to explain what you are doing, the whole thing falls apart. What those videos do not tell you is that a good share of those blades were destroyed on camera. The maker's stamp sanded flat. The edge run blew on a grinder and left dead soft. A factory satin finish buffed to a mirror it never had. The method is the enemy here, not the men doing it. Nobody taught them either. I was one of them. For my first 11 years, I kept a wire cup brush and a half-inch drill, and I thought I was doing God's work. 80 grit paper. Overnight vinegar baths in a coffee can, motor oil off the dipstick because it was free. I took a Robeson pocket knife that a widow sent me down to bare white steel and mailed it back proud of myself. She thanked me. I think about that knife more than I think about the ones I saved. An old cutler in Sydney, Ohio, a man who had been grinding since before the war, watched me do it once and said something I have repeated for 40 years. You can always take more steel off tomorrow. You can never put it back. If you have a blade you inherited and have been afraid to touch, tell me in the comments exactly what it is and exactly what is stamped on the tang letter for letter. I read those. And the last of the 8 is the cheapest thing on the list. It costs about 30 cents a blade. It has saved more knives in my shop than every chemical, stone, and abrasive combined, and almost nobody does it. The first thing costs about $3, and it is a white cotton rag and a bit of magnification. Before any chemistry, before any abrasive, you have to know which oxide you are looking at, because there are 2 of them and they behave like opposites. Red rust is hydrated iron oxide. It is porous, it is loose, it holds moisture against the steel like a wet sponge, and it swells to several times the volume of the metal it ate, which is why it lifts scales and cracks pins. Black patina is largely magnetite, and magnetite is tight, adherent, and chemically stable. It does not pump water, it sits there. Conservators at the Canadian Conservation Institute and the National Park Service, in their guidance on the care of ferrous metals, draw exactly this line. Stable corrosion products are left in place and active ones are stopped. Here's the test. Fold a clean white rag over your thumb, put a drop of mineral oil on it, and drag it firmly across the blade the long way, once. Look at the rag. Orange or reddish brown on the cotton means active corrosion, and you have work to do. Gray or nothing at all means that black is bonded to the steel and it belongs to the knife. Then get a loop on it, a 10-power lens the size of a nickel. Active rust looks like coffee grounds under glass. Stable patina looks like slate. The error I see constantly is people running that test with a paper towel and calling gray dust rust. It is not.
that is oil and old carbon. Skip this test and you will spend the next hour removing 60 years of protection you cannot rebuild in an afternoon. Second thing, and it is free unless you want the loop, which runs about $8. Read the tang before you touch it. The tang is the part of the blade that disappears into the handle, and on almost every American knife made in the last 150 years, it carries the maker's name, the pattern number, and often a date code. That stamp is the single most valuable square inch on the whole knife, and a single pass of a sanding sponge erases it forever.
It also tells you what steel you are holding, which decides everything that comes after. A case marked Case 20 with no USA under it is pre-1965, and that is almost certainly chrome vanadium, a carbon steel, which means it will take patina and it will rust if you let it. Once you get into the dotted stamps of the 1970s, you are often looking at True Sharp, a 420 series stainless, and stainless does not build a protective black layer at all. If a stainless blade has black on it, that is not patina. That is dirt or a stain or fire scale, and it comes off. If a carbon blade has black on it, leave it alone. My error, and I made it for years, was assuming the darker the blade, the older the knife. Not so. I once stripped a 440C Hunter thinking I was saving history, and all I did was remove 60 years of pipe tobacco residue and about 4/1000ths of steel with it. Read first. A stamp you sanded off is a knife that just lost half its value in 11 seconds. Let me stop here for a second. What I just walked you through, the tang stamp and the 2 oxides, is 1 page out of Chapter 4. There are 11 more chapters. It is called The Restorer'S Bench, and it is the book I wish somebody had put in my hands in 1972, 158 pages, 12 chapters, and it is organized by the decision you are actually facing at the bench rather than by chemical. It includes the bench cards you can prop against the vise with oily hands, a safety card for the acids and the electrolysis, and an index arranged by symptoms so you can look up black speckling or a stiff spring and go straight to the page. The link is under this video and the code is on screen. You could take the knife out of that drawer tonight and know exactly what it is and exactly where to stop. That is the night you stop being afraid of that drawer. Third thing, $6. Mineral oil and a pad of double-aught steel wool, which is the finest grade sold and feels like felt between your fingers, not like a scouring pad. This is how you take off active red rust without touching the black. The mechanism matters. Steel wool that fine has an effective abrasive action somewhere in the range of very high grit paper, so it removes the loose swollen red oxide, which is soft, before it can do much to the hard magnetite, which is not. Oil is the key, and most people skip it. Dry steel wool cuts. Oiled steel wool floats the debris away and turns the pad into a carrier instead of a cutter. Flood the blade until it is wet. Work only along the length of the blade, never across, and use about the pressure you would use to butter cold toast. Stop every 20 seconds and wipe. When the rag comes up gray instead of orange, you are done, and done means done. Never take the pad into the tang stamp. Work around it and leave that ½ inch alone forever. The error here is people reaching for a red or gray abrasive pad from the kitchen sink, and those are aluminum oxide loaded, and they will haze the patina right off in 3 passes. If you do not stop the red, the pitting keeps going, and a pit deep enough to reach the edge bevel is a blade you can no longer sharpen straight. Fourth thing, 90 cents, citric acid powder, the kind sold for canning in a $2 jar that will do a dozen knives. This is for the rust the steel wool cannot reach,
which is the rust down inside the pits. Citric acid works by chelation, which means the molecule wraps around iron ions and carries them into solution, and it has a strong preference for the loose oxide over the solid metal. That preference is the whole reason it is safer than what most people use. Mix about a tablespoon into a coffee cup of warm water. Warm, not hot, meaning water you can hold a finger in, 20 minutes, not overnight, ever. Then out, rinse under the tap and dry it with heat from a hair dryer until the blade is too warm to keep your hand on, because water sitting in a pit will flash rust in about 4 minutes. Wear nitrile gloves and crack a window. Now the comparison. Household vinegar is 5% acetic acid, and once it finishes the oxide, it starts on the good steel, which is why an overnight vinegar bath leaves that gray, frosted, chewed-up surface people mistake for age. And cola is theater. It carries phosphoric acid at roughly 0.05%. The rest is sugar water. It makes a wonderful thumbnail in a terrible method. I soaked a Sheffield kitchen knife overnight in vinegar in 1981 and pulled out something that looked like a dental x-ray. My wife still keeps it in the garden for cutting twine. Fifth thing, $2, and this is the one that turns the video around. Strong black tea. Once you have stopped the red, you have bare, hungry, bright steel sitting in the middle of a black blade, and bare steel is the most reactive surface on the knife.
You do not polish it, you convert it. Tea is loaded with tannic acid, and tannic acid reacting with iron produces iron tannate, a stable blue-black compound. Conservators have used tannic acid treatments on ferrous objects for decades precisely because the resulting layer is adherent and passivating rather than porous. Brew 4 bags in 2 cups of water, let it go dead cold, and stand the blade in it for 2 to 4 hours. Check it every half hour. What you are watching for is the bright spots going gray, then brown, then closing to a deep charcoal that matches what is around it. Rinse, dry hot, oil. The knife comes out looking like it has been in a drawer since Eisenhower, which is what you wanted, because the value of an old knife is in reading as old. The error is impatience. People pull it at 40 minutes because nothing is happening, and nothing is happening because tannate formation is slow at room temperature. Give it the afternoon. A patina you built in one afternoon protects the steel for another 30 years. I will be straight with you. 20 minutes is a sample. What is in the book is 800 hours of bench time written down, 12 chapters arranged by the decision in front of you, set in large type, because I am 71 and I know what small print does to a man at a workbench under a shop light. Every technique is scoped for a bench under $40. No buffers, no grinders, no power. And every single method carries a check me line under it with a published, dated source, so you never have to take my word for anything. National Park Service, Canadian Conservation Institute, the ASM handbooks. It comes with 60 days to send it back if it is not what you thought. No argument from me if you have been watching this thinking about one particular knife that outlived the man who carried it. That is who I wrote it for. Same link below, same code on screen. Some things are worth handing down twice. Sixth thing, about $7. Odorless mineral spirits, a syringe, and light machine oil for the joint and the handle. And this is where old folding knives get destroyed by the good intentions of men who love them. Never put a folder in a soak. Liquid wicks up between the liner and the scale by capillary action and it will not come out. And a bone or stag handle that gets wet, swells, then dries, then cracks along the grain. Bone, stag, and antler get cleaned with mineral oil on a rag and nothing else. Flush the pivot instead. 2 or 3 syringes of spirits into the joint, work the blade 30 times, blow it out, then 1 drop of oil and 30 more. Now the thing almost nobody knows, if a pre-1950 knife has cracked, crazed, shrinking handle scales that smell faintly sharp like a swimming pool that is celluloid degrading, and it releases nitrous vapors that rust the blade from the inside out, and every other knife stored in the same box, that is the real answer to the mystery rust in a lot of inherited collections. Get that knife out of the drawer today, into its own bag on its own shelf. 1 rotting celluloid knife will pit 6 good ones in a single humid summer. 7th thing, $25, and it is a combination oil stone and nothing that plugs in. Heat is what kills old knives. A pocket knife blade is hardened somewhere around 56 to 59 on the Rockwell C scale, and that hardness exists only because of a tempering cycle, which is the low temperature bake after hardening that trades a little hardness for the toughness that keeps an edge from chipping. Push the thin edge past about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough that a drop of water skates across the steel instead of boiling, and you get a straw color. Push it near 570 and you get blue. Those colors are not cosmetic, they are a receipt. That steel is now softer than it left the factory, and no amount of sharpening brings it back. A bench grinder does that to a thin edge in under 3 seconds, and a wire wheel does it at the tip before you have finished the thought. So you work by hand, with oil on the stone, 20 strokes aside at about the angle of a matchbook laid under the spine, and you keep your bare finger on the flat of the blade the whole time. If it gets too warm for your finger, it is too warm for the steel. 11 years I ran carbon blades on a grinder. Every one of them left my shop soft, and I did not know it. The 8th thing costs about 30 cents a blade, $9 for a pack that lasts years, and it is vapor corrosion inhibitor paper. Industry has used it since the 40s for shipping bare machined parts across oceans. The paper is impregnated with compounds that slowly release into the air inside a closed container and lay down a molecular film on every steel surface in there, including down in the pits and inside the joint where your oiled rag never reaches. You wrap the knife loosely, you put it in a box or a zip bag, and you replace the paper about once a year. That is the whole method. Now, the other half of it, which is what you stop doing, never store a knife in a leather sheath. Leather is tanned with acidic compounds, and it holds humidity against the blade like a poultice, and I have opened sheaths that had been closed since the 70s and found a blade eaten half through where the welt touched it. Same with felt-lined display cases, and same with a garage drawer in July. All the chemistry in this video is undone in one damp winter. 30 cents a year is the cheapest insurance in this trade, and it is the thing I wish I had known at 30. If there is a tool or a trick I left out of this, put it in the comments and be specific about the steel. Next time I am doing tang stamps in detail, how to date a case, a Schrade, and a Robeson off the marking alone, and which 3 of those markings you can wipe out with one careless pass of an abrasive pad. So go back to that silent video with the wire wheel and the mirror finish. Every one of those blades came out brighter and worth less. Bright is not clean, black is not dirty, rust is red and it is eating, patina is black and it is protecting, and the whole job is telling them apart before you pick anything up. $3 for the rag and oil test, free to read the tang, $8 if you want the loop, $6 for oil and fine steel wool, 90 cents of citric acid, 20 minutes, never overnight, $2 of black tea to convert bare steel back to black, $7 to flush a pivot and to find the celluloid before it eats the collection, $25 for a stone that cannot burn an edge, 30 cents a year of inhibitor paper and the sheath comes off tonight, $61, and most of it you buy once. Against that, no stamp erased, no temper lost, no pitting left running, and no 60-year-old protective layer thrown in the trash because somebody with a buffer never bothered to explain what it was. They never told you what the black was. That is because the second you know, the wire wheel has nothing left to sell you.